Hello, everyone, and happy new year and happy 2025. Welcome to C-Suite Talks. We speak with industry leaders, introducing you to some of the most interesting people and businesses today. We focus on women, money, and power, as well as diversity in all areas. Welcome to C-Suite Talks. I am Beth Hilbing, co-CEO of C-Suite with...
And I'm Dianne Gubin, co-CEO of C-Suite, and we are so happy today to have Maryam Marzara with us. Maryam is one of our coaches, and we are just so pleased to have you today. So again, Maryam is an executive coach. She's a leadership consultant and expert facilitator. She has her own consulting business, Marzara Consulting and Coaching, and she has over a decade of experience in leadership development and coaching. She helps leaders unlock the best versions of themselves. She's worked with companies like Apple, NBC Universal, Disney, and with all over the world she's worked, actually, Singapore, Canada, the UK, China, India, Costa Rica, et cetera, et cetera. Her experience, it's a lot you've done, Maryam. Her experience with innovative and high volume and fast-paced organizations has evolved her into the passionate and committed leader she is today. She is a global citizen at heart with all that travel she's done, and she lives here in sunny California with her dog. And we welcome you here today, Maryam. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, of course. So, is there anything about your background or history that you would like to expand upon? And then also talk to us about how you got into the career that you chose and talk to our listeners about that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you again. And the only thing I would add is kind of a segue as to why I chose this profession. I'm first generation American. I'm a daughter of immigrants that came over from the Middle East. And that's part of my identity, having this duality, being able to understand perspectives. I would, as both my parents have now lived in the United States longer than they had in their home country. And for a lot of ways, I was just so fortunate to be able to have such supportive upbringing. With that being said, there are cultural nuances, right?
Right.
And I would step out of my house and, as understanding and helpful my parents were, there were experiences that I had in K through 12 education that neither of them could speak from direct experience, right? They could give me their experience back home, but it was different. And so to understand and how to empathize, how to connect, how to practice perspective taking is a core part of who I am. And it's really kind of been a propeller in my career. So the second part of your question, I would say why and how I got into this profession. I realized that I wanted to help people. I wanted to be a bridger and a connector. And I realized that I have become the version of myself because of profound leadership and guidance that was given to me. And I wanted to be able to provide that back. I've been in some sort of leadership capacity role as young as I can remember. I think back to even my high school, and I was class president there, and I would always find ways to be involved because my parents ingrained in me on how to leave this world a better place for others. And so I thought helping was, at one point, I remember I thought I wanted to be an attorney and I wanted to be a public defender because I thought that's the way I could help. And then I thought, oh, maybe I should be a reporter and bring the news home for everybody.
Yeah.
And then I realized, wait, I did internships and I thought this isn't really sparking that fulfilling life that I thought I could participate and lead in. And I didn't think of coaching as a profession, but I knew I wanted to help people unlock the best versions of themselves and not just not just survive, but thrive. And there's a distinct difference. And then I realized, wait, this world is becoming more complex. I'm kind of giving like a fast forward version of my last nearly 4 decades, but I realized being a leader is indisputably hard. The world is becoming more complex and change continues to be the norm and not the exception. So that need for us to be the best version of ourselves at work and at home is higher than ever before.
Right. Yeah, sometimes you wonder if anything's ever going to be normal, right? What is normal? So
truly,
tell
what
us
is normal?
why is coaching important like, why do you think you chose this to help people, etc.? So why coaching, and how is coaching different from, consulting or psychotherapy or anything else? So why coaching?
Yeah. So as you said in the intro, I provide coaching and consulting. I'm going to give a very bottom line definition of the differences between the two, but for any listeners, keep in mind that they're interchangeable given the context and what's being asked of the given moment. Consulting is providing direction and feedback and giving the answers. Coaching has a lot of inquiry based in its science. Now, I weave between the two because nuance, context matters. And sometimes people don't need to be asked questions. Some people really need advice, and vice versa. Sometimes I'm a big believer the power of coaching is that we all have our inner wisdom, but society has done a really good job for us to quiet that inner wisdom and have our inner critics come out to play. And so the power of coaching is being asked a powerful question and helping you unlock your own inner wisdom within, because truly you really know you and your life and your context better than anybody else can.
Right. That's correct. So as you've worked for some of these huge corporations, what kind of engagements have they engaged you with, and what kind of challenges have you experienced with that? Because they're very large bureaucratic organizations.
Yeah, just getting in the door of those organizations can be challenging.
Yeah. And what I want to clarify here is that there's no one size fits all, right? Mm-hmm. And most times when clients approach me for like what I say a quote unquote presenting problem, when they approach me with what they have, most times I find that with more inquiry up front, I realize there's an unearthing. There's something in the foundation really that needs to be explored. And what they're coming to me with is what can be seen visibly above ocean water, but we need to explore the iceberg underneath. And a lot of it, I can't tell you both or any of these listeners like joining us right now, the power of mindset and taking time to slow down to go fast has exponential benefits on the overall health of an organization. We rely on our leaders to do so much for companies. How are we investing in them so that they in turn can achieve the ROI, hit that bottom line? Because ultimately, without the leaders and without the individual contributors, those strategies don't come to life. So we have to invest in those leaders to actually take that to the finish line and understand how to make them really kind of deposit, right? The analogy of deposit versus withdrawal. If we're constantly withdrawing from them, we're going to be in the negatives. We're going to overdraft. For any of my bankers out there, right? We're going to be in overdraft, and we don't want that. So we have to learn how to way to deposit and invest in them, and understanding that our leaders, no matter if they have the title of a president or they're somebody who just joined as a first-time manager, we all put on pants the same way. And we need to understand the humanity that goes behind each of those roles.
Well, you said slow down to go fast, and that, of course, is hard to do.
Yeah, so very hard to do.
Yeah. It's very hard to do because we all like to go fast. So you work a lot with neuroscience. So what does neuroscience mean within the context of what you're doing, and how do you execute on that?
Yeah, my master's is a master of science because of all the neuroscience data that was woven into the curriculum. And I always tell folks, have you ever gotten feedback where you're listening to the feedback and you're just like, sure, wait till it's my turn? You're like, okay, great. Well, it's triggering something within us, within our brain. So we are hardwired for pleasure and comfort. And when something contradicts that, our brain is triggering a fight or flight response, because our brain can't distinguish between an emotional threat or a physical threat. So we put up these walls and barriers in the effort to protect us. But really what we're doing is not listening to potentially feedback or something that could be of use for us. I'm not saying all feedback is useful. And trust me, we're in the world and society now where we're receiving feedback in any which way. My phone now tells me how much time I've spent on it each week. I'm like,
Right.
I don't know if I
I'm
want
only
that
keeping you
feedback.
on your iPad.
Right. And so,
Rewards.
we have to be able to distinguish, patterns of feedback that we're getting. But to the neuroscience of it all is, there's an almond shaped piece in our brain called the amygdala, and that gets triggered and it triggers this fight or flight response. This is why practices of meditation have become so increasingly popular, because it does something to that amygdala. It almost like shrinks it to be able to have your wise self respond, take a moment to pause and not be in a reactionary mode. There's a difference between response and react, is what I always tell them to my clients. But we can't do that when we're just constantly on autopilot. Our brain, that a part of the brain actually hijacks it.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
So do you meditate every day?
I'm not going to lie to any of my viewers. I do not do it every day. And that's part of my work, right? I believe that the best
2025 goal.
that's right. And I believe the best coaches have coaches. I invest in a coach myself because I don't want my clients to get just, 50% of Maryam. I want them to get the best Maryam that they can get. And so I do practice meditation regularly. I don't do it every day. I would be lying if I said I do it every day, but I do it regularly and I do it as consistently.
Every day. Yeah.
Do you, Dianne? That's amazing.
Almost every day. Yeah.
That is amazing.
That is really good.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's really good.
I go 5 to 6 days a week. I haven't done 7 days yet.
Yeah. Actually, what I've been doing lately, we'll just kind of do a little sidebar here, is on ChatGPT, I've been doing these mind movies that are, and then I record them onto my phone because ChatGPT will say them out loud. So then I get to listen, not just to a meditation, but something that I've said about, what I'm creating right now.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Can you kind of talk about, I know on your website you offer free guides on how to challenge our inner critics. I know we all have them. I know I do. Can you discuss that a little bit with us?
Yeah. That nasty little voice, right?
Yeah, some of my colleagues call them saboteurs. Some of us call them inner critics. The reason why they're sometimes called saboteurs is because it comes from the word sabotage and where we self-sabotage. And I just took a course in something called PQ, Positive Intelligence. And it's led by the former CEO of where I received my coach training and education from. And we really dove deep into this topic. We really dove deep into this topic. And really, ultimately, if I had to bottom line it, it's any thought that has to be negative or doubtful or fearful. And when and they come out to play, these inner critics, they come out to play when we are making the biggest, most bold changes in our lives.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
My take is, people, a lot of folks, I've heard them say like, done with the inner critic. I'm kicking it out. And I have never found shame to be a helpful tactic. We are not going to shame ourselves into change. So I've learned that the most sustainable way for my inner critics has been to thank them and befriend them. My inner critics are there for a reason. They got me to where I am today. So why would I treat them so poorly? My active practice is always thanking them and befriending them before anything else. And understanding where their birthplace has been really helpful for me. Understanding why they have come out to play and saying like, listen, like, I understand why you're here. And I'm telling you, it's like the movie Inside Out, having those inner voices. Like, I know why you're here. I get it. And I no longer need you. So I'm not going to say I'm kicking you out of the car, but you're just not going to sit behind the driver's seat.
That's a very good analogy. Very good.
That is. Oh my gosh. I don't even know what to say about that. Bye, inner critics.
So who do you think benefits from coaching? So what we hear a lot of times is a couple things. Number one, they say, I already have a coach. I can't have another coach.
I'm too busy.
I'm too busy. It's not really my forte to take time to do that, So we get a lot of that because at C-Suite we offer executive coaching. You get a first session free, and we have a suite of coaches, and it's a wonderful benefit to the members, and we want them to take advantage of that because everybody can do better and be better. So, what would you say to all of that? And then, what do you feel people would benefit from coaching?
Well, the first thing I would say is I would acknowledge their inner critic that's speaking. I would thank that inner critic. I would thank the inner critic. I would befriend their inner critic. And I would, honestly, I would just acknowledge it and just say, like, I hear you. Like, who has time for anything these days? I totally can relate and understand. I then would talk about, I honestly wouldn't, if it was just me talking to them, one human to another, because I hear that often. I have some companies who sponsor someone or at least want to sponsor one of their leaders to have coaching with me. And they're like, I don't even know why I'm here. I don't have feelings to discuss with you. I'm like, well, those sound like feelings to me.
Wow, interesting. Yeah.
I'm like, okay. Obviously, there's contracting that I'll end up doing with the business that's sponsoring them, saying like, listen, if they don't want to be here, let's talk about this, right? But back to your original question of just, even other folks who may have coaching accessible to them and they're saying, I don't have time. I get it. I understand. Time is of value. And we have to figure out, like, there's a chemistry check that we need to have. Not everyone is going to be perfect for everyone, right? There are some people who may not jive with me. There's some people who may not jive with my peers. That's okay. And that should not be an excuse for how you invest in yourself. I believe the best coaches have coaches themselves. I have my own coach. And the reason why is because I know the brain has this unconscious bias for me and for all of us when we come to make those hard decisions in our life. And I need someone to call me out on that, put a mirror up to me in service of what my goals and dreams are. The other thing I would say to them is, if people are really interested and they can't find the time, I would say, let's take a look at your time. Let's look at your schedule. Because most coaches, myself included, I meet with a client once every 2 or 3 weeks. And if some really can't, maybe I'll push it to 4, but I don't recommend pushing it beyond that because you want to meet consistently.
I gotcha. No, that makes sense.
Very interesting. Interesting. So tell us, you are certified in something called Enneagram. Is that it? And the Leadership Circle Profile. I'm not familiar with either of those modalities.
Sure.
Maybe Beth is. Can you tell us about that?
Sure, happy to. So the Enneagram is an assessment that you can, I'm putting air quotes up because we can say it's a personality assessment, but it's a little bit different than a personality assessment compared to other assessments out there. Listen, I'm not here to talk ill about any other personality assessments out there. I'm just here to showcase the difference. What the Enneagram does is that it actually measures your motivation, your core motivation. So not necessarily if we're using that analogy of the iceberg, we're not looking at your personality and characteristics traits that are visible to us, that is above the ocean water. We are looking for what is driving those characteristics and personality traits. It's your motivation and it's your fears. So Ennea means 9. Gram comes from, I believe it's the Latin word for picture. So 9 pictures. There's 9 core types. And what I love about it is that it showcases that we have all 9 types within us. And it shows us how to take us out of the unintentional box we have put ourselves in.
And then is it scored? And then, yeah, does it get like a score, like a, 360, and then you have recommendations? Is it kind of like that?
Yeah. How's it differ from like the DISC?
Yeah, so similar to the DISC, like the DISC, you'll be like, oh, I'm an I or I'm a D. The Enneagram will provide you with a core type number. So you'll have 1 through 9. You'll have one of those 9 numbers as your core type. the company that I'm certified to administer and I use in my coaching is that it gives you a core type. And then there is a million ways to slice and dice it. There is a number that shows up. And when you're feeling, this is how you feel. It shows up in this number. When you're thinking, it shows up in this number. When you're going to take action, it shows up in this number. You have a main core type similar to other assessments out there, but then you really unpack it with your coach to really understand what is behind the curtain, even further than that.
Okay, gotcha. And so what advice would you give to the leaders and executives through this whole process, and what do you do in generality with them?
Yeah. So my advice to them is that these are tools. The Enneagram is a tool. The leadership circle profile, it's a 360 program. So what that means is, let's just use me as an example. If I was the leader participating in the 360, Beth, you as my coach, you would administer this tool to get feedback from my boss. If your boss is a CEO and you don't have a boss's boss, then it would just be your boss. If you're a CEO, we can look into getting feedback from a board member. And then you enlist feedback from your direct reports, your peers, and other functional partners that you work with. So that's where the 360 comes from, that we're seeking feedback from people all around you at work.
Right.
The tool is so powerful because it also asks you for a self-assessment. And then in partnership with me, we take a look at competencies, reactive tendencies as to how you perceive yourself and how others that work with you are perceiving you in that competency, in your ability, to be collaborative or to get things done, if you will. The advice
and see where you may be a little delusional.
Yeah, this is a little scary, actually.
I wouldn't say delusional, but I would say maybe an opening for us, honestly, like the way that I prepare for it as a coach, when I get somebody's leadership circle profile, I walk around my apartment asking myself, what would it be like to walk in the shoes of this leader?
Ooh, well, that's good.
Wow.
And I do that because, again, leadership is lonely. And it's painful and it's hard and it's challenging. And the higher up you go, the more challenging it gets.
Yeah.
Because
how painful are you?
I always tell the story how I was at an executive leadership thing, and all the gentlemen went off to go watch a game together, and they never asked me. And I said to my husband, well, I would like to go. I would have liked to have been asked. And he said, well, they probably didn't want you because they thought you talked to them the whole time. I'm like, what a sexist thing to say, but it hurt my feelings. So anyway,
That's 360 right there.
So as we end this session, what is one positive thing you'd like our listeners to take away?
I think one positive thing, advice, what have you, that I would give any of the listeners is we have to learn how to invest in ourselves, our children, our animals, our community, our direct reports, our companies are all gaining from that when we invest in ourselves. And so there is power behind coaching because there is no life manual. There's no manual how to do these things. And to have someone that you can trust that can help you navigate that is the best gift you can not only give to yourself, but to all those people that I just mentioned.
Wow. Great. Very powerful. Very, very powerful. So thank you, Maryam Marzara. Am I saying your last name right?
Yes, you are, Dianne.
Say your name for us.
Maryam Marzara.
Right, with Marzara Consulting and Coaching. And how do people find you, please?
Yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn, my first and last name. They can also find me on social, which is Marzaraco. And I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn as my primary socials.
Terrific. And if someone wanted to work with you, that's how they get to you?
Yeah, and my website is... Yeah, my website is a great way because there's also that free resource that Beth had mentioned of the guide on how to challenge your inner critics. And that is marzaraco.com. And please tell me if you're reaching out based off of this podcast. I'd love to know because I also am a member of C-Suite and I'd love to be able to meet you in person.
That's wonderful.
Terrific. So let's thank our sponsors. Thank you, because we couldn't do this without our sponsors. We are so in appreciation of Cone Resnick Advisory, which is assurance and tax services, the City National Bank, Cigna, Nutanix, Uncle Nearest, and C-Suite Search. And C-Suite Search, if you're hiring, think about us and call us and see how we can support you and your team. Thank you to our listeners. And Beth.
And hit the subscribe button on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere you find your podcast today. And then please leave us a review and follow us on social, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. We love hearing from you. You can send me an email, beth@csweet.org, and check out our website and come to our events and get active and get with coaching. Thank you very much today and have a great weekend.
Thank you, Maryam.
Thank you both.
Thank you.